One. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I am your host, David Streggy, and here in the room with me, I have Septum Sim, no, from normally Septum Sim versus the World. Here in the room with us, we have director Evan Jacobs from California. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first? And where you're from, and how did you get involved in the independent film industry, as it were?
Okay. Originally, my name's Evan Jacobs. Originally, I am from New York. Actually, lived there for the first 4 years of my life. Came out to California, and ever since I was a little kid, movies were in my life. Like honestly, one of my first memories of being alive is actually being in the movie theater watching like the 1978 version of King Kong or something. So they've always they were always in my life, and I was in second grade when like the writing bug hit me. The teacher gave us an assignment, said you guys have to write a 2-page story. Well, I wrote my story. Everyone was still like kind of working on theirs, so I wrote another one, and then I think I wrote another one. So then I started writing, and so I was kind of writing books and short stories, and then kind of got away from that for a little bit in the mid 80s, and then in about the early 90s I started writing scripts again, and I wrote two very Woody Allen-esque scripts. um, one was called Not She Me, and then the other one after that was called Deacon Blues, which then became Walking Between the Raindrops. And then
Okay.
from there I wrote a script called The Art. And by the way, tell me if you want me to stop talking.
Well, repeat
Uh,
yourself about the last title. What was that
am I
title
good?
again? What was it?
Well, the last title was originally Deacon Blues, but then I changed it to Walking Between the Raindrops.
Okay, and then you mentioned another
And
title.
then I then wrote a script called it was called The Artist, and this was like
Okay.
in 1993. Yeah, it was around 1993, 1994, and that was about the time that like Kevin Smith came out with Clerks, Quentin Tarantino came out, had Pulp Fiction, and so suddenly an agent called me about The Artist, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is gonna be my big break. Blah 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 blah. Right, exactly. No, it's good that you're laughing because it's the truth. It wasn't a joke, but it was one of those things where they wanted me to rewrite the script. I rewrote the script, and then by the time I turned in the rewrite, which wasn't that long, um, a that agent no longer was at that company, and they kind of, I don't want to say didn't want anything to do with me, but they didn't really care about the script anymore. So
Hmm.
I was like bummed, and out of that bumness and out of that anger, I said, I'm gonna make a movie because I'm tired of like even just that little experience of having my fate being in the hands of somebody else as far as allowing me to create and allowing me to make something. I was like, I don't ever want to be in that position again. So I said, I'm going to make this movie called Walking Between the Raindrops, which there's a whole story behind that. But I remember that morning, I went upstairs. My dad was sitting upstairs because he worked from home at the time, and I said, Dad, I'm going to make a movie. And he just kind of goes, okay, you're gonna make a movie. Let's see. And then I just, I, I made Walking Between the Raindrops, and that just started like a snowball effect of movies, but got movies, but got movies, but got movies.
Okay, and how was
So
making
so here I
Walking?
am, and now I'm
How
talking to
was
you guys.
how was making Walking Between the Raindrops? Who did you go
Hello.
to help star in that film besides yourself?
Oh, what in Walking Between? Hello.
Yeah, I think I'm walking between raindrops.
What was the question?
Dave? He'll be back with us, I'm sure. There he goes.
Okay.
Actually, that story sounds a lot like. Is it like the Toll Collector that had a similar story to it, where where the character had actually had a pitch to him?
I think Safety in Numbers.
Safety in Numbers. Sorry.
No, but you're very, very perceptive. Yes. Good call. Thank you, Brandon, for picking up on that.
So, how did you go about and find some of your actors for Walking in the Raindrops?
Well, what I had written that script with those people in mind. The guy that played Chris, his name is Chris, and Popeye, as we call him, his real name is Mike Vogelsang. I mean, the three of us hung out all the time. So immediately I said, okay, I'm gonna put these people in the movie. For the girl, Rachel, I had been like smitten with her for a very long time, and we were friends, and she was a very, very nice person, but she just everyone likes who they like, and I liked her. She didn't feel that way about me, but we were but well, I mean, it didn't. How do I put this? I was like, okay, well, we can still be friends, and everything is okay. So I made this movie. But the interesting thing, and I'm being totally serious when I say that, the interesting thing is I wrote that script before I really got to know her. So it's almost like I wrote the script, and then what happened in the script ended up happening in real life, in kind of an odd way. And the thing is, the only one of us that really had any training in acting was Rachel. Everybody else was just like we just wanted to make movies. We wanted to act. We wanted to do that.
Well, tell us a little bit about what Walking in the Raindrops is about, and where did you entirely film it?
Walking Between the Raindrops was filmed all over Orange County. It's a film that is very much in debt to Woody Allen, specifically Annie Hall. I love that movie. But there's another movie that I'm sure you guys know about, because you guys seem like we come from like the same school of movies. There was a movie in the 80s. It was a Menachem Golan movie, The Last American Virgin. And the ending, I mean, I straight up ripped off the ending of The Last American Virgin in Walking Between the Raindrops. Like, straight up stole it.
Okay. Moving on to Safety in Numbers. Brandon, if you wanted to jump in here and ask him a few questions, you're more than welcome to.
Well, I mean, to me, I would think that Safety in Numbers, almost that one, The Toll Collector and Walking Between Raindrops was almost like a trilogy, wasn't it? I mean, they have a similar feel, and
you're very, very perceptive. After I did Walking Between the Raindrops, I cajoled my father into driving me up to LA, and I had like 10 VHS tapes, and we drove to a bunch of different companies and just left the tape there. For some reason, I thought that would be a good idea. Like, we'll drop this off at Paramount and MGM, and someone will see Walking Between the Raindrops and be like, "Oh, this guy's brilliant. We gotta make movies with him." I mean, nowadays you would just send a link. And so I did that, and a guy from Roger Corman's company ended up calling me back, and they didn't want to buy the movie, but they were just like, "Hey, thanks for dropping it off. If you ever shoot something on film, blah 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 blah." So then I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll make something on film, or at least I'll try to." So I was going to do the whole credit card thing that was big in the 90s. I was going to max out all my credit cards, and then my friends were kind of like, "Dude, that's not that's not a very good idea. That's come on. So then I made Safety in Numbers pretty much not right after Walking Between the Raindrops, but I took what I learned from Walking Between the Raindrops and I put it into Safety in Numbers. Hence why the films look kind of the same. And then with the Toll Collector, I had been trying back then. My goal was to make 4 films a year, a film every 3 months. Mm-hmm. And then I just kind of realized that wasn't really possible. but again, I took what I'd learned from the Toll Collector, and I'm not in the Toll Collector, but I took what I learned from Safety in Numbers. And the reality of it, that I don't think I would do anything too differently, but what's the best way to say this? Okay, at that time, I fell in, just because I was making independent films, I fell in with a bunch of independent horror filmmakers. Mm-hmm. And I would come across people that would want to fund movies because they liked the drama aspects, but their whole pitch to me was, Evan, just put some TNA in your movies. Like, then we can sell them. Then you're going to make some money. And I was like, that's where, and Brandon knows about this, and maybe you too, Mark, or I'm sorry, David. Well, I don't know why I called you Mark. I know your name is I know the illusion of grandeur. Because there's another guy. Because there's another guy. Sorry. Anyway, I come from a very punk rock scene and just sort of mindset, and just the idea of, I'm gonna write a movie where a girl gets naked for no other reason in the movie than just so we can sell it. Mm-hmm. I was like, nah. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, guys. I don't mind nudity. A nude scene comes on, great. But it just was very. I just wasn't going to do that. In fact, recently I had a. Yes. Sorry. Go on, please.
Well, I was going to say that doesn't mean that you can't eventually do a movie your way with some TNA. You know.
No, you're right. But no, it's so funny that you say that. It's so funny that you say that, David, because I had a producer not like a little over a year ago ask me. He's all, okay, listen, I need to ask you something. There's no girls in your film. What's the matter? Like, why don't you have girls in your movies? And like, I okay, well, in the animated movies, I have girls. It's just a lot of times I'm working, as you guys both know, not a lot of resources, not a lot of money, not a lot of time. So I got to kind of go with my friends who can kind of be more run and gun, as opposed to like some of the women that I know. A lot of them are parents. A lot of them like they can't just drop everything and coming and being in a movie on a Sunday or Saturday afternoon. It isn't as easy as me telling, like, for instance, I just shot a social distancing, which that's not the name of it, but I'm just going to say that a social distancing horror movie, or social distance horror movie that is as yet untitled. My friend that I had do it is Mike Hartsfield. He plays Brett Baxter in the Death Toilet movies. Like, I can tell Mike, dude, we're shooting at this time on a Saturday, and there's no there's not a lot of blowback. He and I are generally gonna shoot at that time. So anyway, it's the 90s, and I really just wanted to make like dramas. Like I was like Bart Friedlink or whatever his name is. I was like at like 20, like trying to make these kind of serious, deep movies. And so at that time, like, but my peers at that time were all making horror movies and and all doing movies, and I don't, and so yeah, it was.
It was
Anyway,
probably an interesting time because you were doing movies that no one was doing.
well, but see, then again, you run into weird things like you're doing movies that nobody's doing, and then maybe not a lot of people want to see them either. I mean, I remember. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the band Royal Crown Review. They were like a swing band in like the
Mhm.
90s. The singer was going to be in Schusterman Levine, a boxing fable. I originally played the role of Tony, and I sent him the Toll Collector to watch, and I asked him. I said, "So what'd you think of it?" And he's hemming and hawing, and then he goes, "Listen, man," because that's how he talks. It's a real old timey way of talking. He's like, "Listen, man, I had to turn it off." I'm like, "What? Turn it off? What are you talking about?" So, man, you're depressing me with that movie. I'm like, oh man, I'm in trouble now. I'm in trouble now. But it's funny because around that time, I came up with an idea for a film called Watching a Movie. Everybody told me, don't make this movie. Don't make it, Evan. Like literally, Evan, that sounds terrible. The 80-year-old guy whose home I edited it stood over my shoulder one day watching one of the scenes and just said, "Evan, this is as boring as hell." And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. That little movie has honestly gone on to have more of a life than almost any other movie that I've made. It was remastered by the company that put out Master of the Flying Guillotine. It was redone by these college students. It's had like a 20th anniversary or a 10th anniversary, and there's even talk of there's going to be a sequel. It's just I guess right now in this quarantine that we're in, guys, this would probably be the time to do it, but we will see. And right now, lest you think I'm just running around breaking the quarantine, I am not. A friend of mine, he's my godson. His family went out to North Carolina for spring break about 4 weeks ago, and then this whole thing kind of broke with the whole coronavirus thing. Like it really became something.
Mhm.
Like in the U.S. it became something. So they really they have a house out there, so they're just sort of staying out there. So I picked up, here, I'll show it to you guys. I put together a mail package for them, and I'm going to mail it to them. But while I was there, because as you guys know, everything is kind of about a movie. My godson has autism, and a documentary about his senior year, which is like what's happening now, and I mean everything is sort of just playing into it. Anyway, the computer that we were editing it on was there, and so I picked up the computer because I want to keep working on it so that by the time he comes back, we can kind of have it done. And every year, if we have a movie or a little project that we make, we'll enter it into Sundance. I don't know what that's going to look like this year, just because I'm not sure what's happening with Sundance and, if it's going to be pushed back. But so, yeah, just to explain why I'm driving around when we should all be staying at home and staying safe.
I wasn't worried.
Okay, good. I feel better.
Brandon, if you could lead the discussion into Schusterman Levine boxing table.
Well, I will say that that one I'm partial to because it is my favorite. I actually prefer a lot of the early ones. Something about them, they all have a very personal nature to them. But Schusterman Levine had a very personal nature for me. I was big into a lot of the early slapstick Woody Allen films, so that identified to me for films like Zelig or Take the Money and Run. But I don't know if that's what was related on your end of it, but that's how I got it reflected.
Brandon, can I actually ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that maybe part of the reason that you kind of gravitate to the early films, it has something to do with the fact, because I know you and I kind of come from the same music scene. Do you think that you're sort of reminded of that a little bit when you see those movies, and that maybe it kind of, just sort of maybe brings you back to that a little bit? I've actually wanted to ask you that ever since you told me that you and I kind of come from the same scene.
Yeah, just different timing, because when I would travel around with groups around the Richmond area for their scene, it was in the late 90s, early 2000s. But there's a lot of similarities, a lot of that concept of you don't want to sell out, which I thought was I was like, that was just, to me, that just resonated with a lot of the people. There were a lot of straight edge people I traveled with. And to me, when I was looking at that and looking at some of the black and white films, there was just something about those to me that just really resonated as far as emotionally. I felt like there's a lot of personality to those films.
Well, I was able to watch at least 3/4 of that film. I still have to get back to it, and I loved all the different names that you came up with, like your opponents.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, with those types of films, I mean, like I said, Woody Allen in the early. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. You were saying something?
Yep.
Oh yeah, no. I was just saying, like the names like Bad Breath Brown. There was Tony. There was I mean, there's there's see, I always liked Winston Walsh because his gimmick was that he was a billy goat, and I don't know if anybody ever really got that, or if anyone ever thought that was funny, but I mean, as you guys can probably tell, I was obviously greatly influenced by both Take the Money and Run, Annie Hall. Like, I love Woody Allen's films in general. Brandon and I have talked about this actually, just in the sense of how Woody Allen he's basically, some are going to be great, some are not going to be great, but the trick is that he just keeps doing it. Mm-hmm. And I think Brandon said that Woody said something to the effect of, he may make, like every 10 films, he may have a masterpiece, but if you keep making films, although guys, has he made one? I was actually wondering this, has he made one in like the past year?
He took a year off after rainy day in New York because of the whole Me Too situation. But then after taking a year off, he's actually made another film that is getting ready to tour over in Europe. I can't think of the name of it right now. So he's trying to get back into his 1 a year routine again. It's just he's recentered he had to basically recenter everything into Europe, and he already had 1 foot in Europe anyway. So yeah, it's so it's just
no, you know what? Oh wow, so then because I wondered about that, because I'm thinking he's not going to want to do the press and the things that are going to sort of open him up to questions about what. Okay, no, interesting. Hey, thank you for explaining that to me, because I was like I would see if a film of his was coming out, I would try to see it, and usually he could command a big cast based on just being Woody Allen. But I know that with things happening with the Me Too deal, which is how do I put this? It's necessary for stuff like that to happen. Mm-hmm. Like Harvey Weinstein, he should have long ago been dealt with in some way. I mean, as much as I love Pulp Fiction, as much as I love the films that he had a hand in, all you need to do is read the book Down and Dirty Pictures, and okay, this is not a good guy. So yeah, that's I just didn't know. And sorry guys, I'm just moving the computer in. This is kind of how I do things, guys. Everything is for movies. So but I promise I'm going to stop moving around in about 5 seconds. I'm just happy to hear that he found a way to work. And unfortunately, I don't know a ton about the Ronan Farrow and his situation. I just know that I just know that the things going on with that have probably caused him to, as you just said, retrench into figuring out different ways to get his movies out.
Yeah, and he just released a book, so that was probably also was part of the delay. Apropos of Nothing is the name.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm going to do something really, really, really odd as we're doing this. I'm going to turn it really, really, really low. Guys, I always need white noise of some sort happening in my house. Mm-hmm. I am weird that way. So I'm literally, just so that I know that it's on, I'm turning on a TV. It's going to be very, very low. You guys won't ever hear it, but I'll know that it's on, and that will give me comfort as I am in the house.
Just to get back to Schusterman Levine, there were two questions I had because there was something you had mentioned about you had sustained a pretty bad injury during that filming, and also was curious about your experience with boxing because of that as well, because I see that as a reflection in a lot of the films is the boxing angle.
Okay, I'll do the injury first and then the boxing, and I will try to be as succinct as possible, just because you guys know I can talk a dog off a meat wagon. The injury I had when I did The Toll Collector, and if you watch The Toll Collector, you'll see it. I'm limping in that film. I was on the phone with Chris, and we were talking about going to a hardcore show that night, and I wasn't paying attention, and I messed up how I cut up how I cut my nail. I just really, really messed it up. Had to have the toenail removed. The whole thing but before I had it removed, I shot The Toll Collector. So then you'll see me limping. I went in, had it removed, but the nail never grew back correctly. So when you watch Schusterman Levine, I'm in all those scenes and I'm moving around in the ring. I'm constantly, and I was also trying to train for it, even though Schusterman was a terrible fighter. I was constantly running on it and pounding on it. So I messed up the toenail. So I had to have it removed again. It's still messed up. It's still like not in good shape. So that's the injury from that movie. As far as boxing, I got into boxing when I was 14, and it is. I'm still a huge fan of it. I do a podcast on YouTube, Boxing Time TV, where I put on simulated fights. Like if there's for real fights that are happening. So what I've been trying to do lately is all the fights that I can do or that I can think of or that I see that got canceled unfortunately due to the coronavirus pandemic, I'm doing. So anyway, I just got really super duper into boxing, and then I decided to make Schusterman Levine, and I literally just on a whim, once I started writing the script, I was in Las Vegas. I was like, hey, I had a video camera on me. This is before cell phones and all that stuff. I said, hey, let's go out to a boxing gym, and I'm just going to see if fighters will talk to me. So suddenly, I'm interviewing all these fighters that I'm reading about in KO Magazine, Ring Magazine, Boxing News. I'm seeing them on TV, HBO, Showtime. So suddenly, I was able to interview them. So then I made that movie. And it's just this love of boxing is just like I'm not the most knowledgeable boxing person, but I'm pretty I go a lot deeper than your casual fan. And so from there, I wrote a movie that got made with probably one of the bigger movies that I've had made with Stone Cold Steve Austin called Knockout, which you can watch on Tubi TV, TUBI TV. And that is basically the Karate Kid with boxing gloves. And then I literally running in the street one day, and this guy stopped me, and he saw this boxing shirt that I was wearing. It turned out that his name is Drew. His father's name is Roy. Roy Engelbrecht is he's been promoting fights in the Southland for 40 years. when Oscar De La Hoya wanted to learn to box, I mean, not box, when he wanted to learn how to be a promoter, he bought Roy's company. So I started working with Roy Engelbrecht, doing a documentary, and then the documentary led to, hey, can you make us trailers that we can put on cable and put on the internet for our fights? And then that has led to now I do their social media, and then that has led to me doing like their broadcasting. So when they do the fights at the hangar, it's called Fight Club OC. I am one of the broadcasters on that. And then when we do them at the Hawaiian Gardens, which is it's called the Garden Casino Fight Night, I do that as well. So but you guys have to realize all of this stems from a love of boxing and a love of movies and a love of writing. And if I wasn't doing all three of those, if I wasn't like I honestly don't think I would be doing much of any of this stuff. Like all that stuff sort of plays into each other.
Okay.
So after Schuster, now assume that you did film this in Orange County, like you have some of your films before. After Schusterman, you did a film called Angela's Home Movie.
Yeah. That was my triumphant return because, okay, Schusterman Levine cost me about $15,000 to make. Which, see, here's the thing: you guys know my films right now, and you know that I am not spending hardly any money to make these movies. So why I bring that up and why I tell you that is, for me to spend $2,000 on a movie, that's what it cost me to get Schusterman shot. Then editing, and there was just all these problems with that movie. And there were all these false starts with that movie too, which you'll actually, I'm making another DVD of Schusterman, and this documentary that I made back when I was making the movie is actually going to be on it. I just need to re-edit it. It just killed me, and it made me not want to make movies because I was like, you know what? Like, if I have to kill myself and spend all this money and do all this stuff, and then nothing, and then ultimately nothing really happens with the movie in terms of other than me self-distributing it, I was like, I don't want to make any more movies. And the reason why that kind of, for me, it was really sad was I literally had just gotten a DVD. I computer edited on. So now
I think you're having some audio issues for a moment there, Evan. So start back.
Connection issue.
When you come back on.
Okay. Here, you know what? And I'm gonna just put this on something so that I'm not constantly moving, and I can talk with my hands because it's a lot easier when you can talk with your hands. So I was just at a point after making Schusterman where nothing had really happened with the movie other than me self-distributing it. And when I made that movie, I had letters from Fine Line Features, letters from Miramax, because what I did before I made the movie is I tried to get them to come in on the film. Sent them the script and said the same thing, which I didn't realize behooves them to say this. They were and then I'm thinking oh, this is big. I'm going to sell this movie. But the reality of that is, for those executives, I was doing all the work. So of course they're going to tell me, oh yeah, make the movie and then show it to us. Because they have nothing to lose. If they say no, fine. If they say if they're interested, then they got to pass it up and blah blah blah. So I was like, I don't want to make any more movies. And I think I did. I think I kind of took a break for about a year, and I watched the movie Rounders a lot, and I felt like Matt Damon in Rounders, where I was like, I got a bad beat. I'm done with this. I'm not going to go back. But then, and I'm not sure what led to this. I'd written a movie or a script that was 300 pages called 1985, 1987. It was I wrote it when I was on the Warped Tour. It was a thick script, and I was like, you know what? I would love to make this. And so I started to think about ways that I could make it. And then I was like, I can't do it live action. I have no money. You cannot make an 80s movie in the 80s with no money. So then I was like, okay, how can I do this? Animation. So I started just Googling or no, I think I got like a Macworld magazine. I found a company, Toon Boom Studios. And so I started, I bought the animation program. I think it was like $200-$300. And I gave myself a year to kind of learn how to use it while I rewrote the script. And then I was just going to draw the entire movie. And I figured I'll do it with simple animation, blah, 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 blah. How this leads into Angela's home movie is that I wanted to make another movie first. And I remember just being like, okay, make a movie really, really quick. So Angela's home movie was the first of the series of movies that I wrote with just an outline. And then I went out by myself and made this found footage movie with all these, with all these locations and all these locales, edited it really, really super duper quick. And then that became the film after walking between the raindrops. No, I'm sorry. After Schusterman Levine. And the process of doing that to make a movie with nothing, for nothing. And then now I was able to release it on DVD because doing DVDs was really, really cheap. I was sort of like, okay, I'm back. And then that really kind of propelled me with 1985, 1986 to be like, okay, make this movie. And then another thing that it also did was it gave me the idea of, as you're making these animated movies, because it takes me from writing the script to drawing the animated movie, because I'm drawing the entire movie. Like whether it's 80 pages, 100 pages, I'm drawing the whole movie. Now you guys have seen the movie, so we're not talking Pixar. They're not amazing. I know that. Come on, but it's a whole freaking animated movie. Like, come on, that's kind of like, I'm just saying. At the very least, you got to kind of go, okay, this guy's going for it. So then, so then, what that did was it taught me, though, if I'm making a movie or an animated movie that takes me 3 years, and I can write outlines and make movies from outlines, make a couple of movies each year just to keep movies coming out constantly, keeping stuff in the pipeline. So that's sort of the Angela's, like, that was the lesson from Angela's home movie. And that's something, and then I'll stop talking. That's something else about this whole filmmaking experience and about just working in general. A lot of times now it isn't even so much about how the movie's received, although of course I'd love for it to be received well. It's kind of more about, I like what John Cassavetes would talk about that exploration. And don't get me wrong, guys, I want to sell movies. Like, I want to make movies. I want people to see these movies, and I want people to enjoy them and be entertained. But at the same time, when you're making a movie for literally nothing, if it's not a 4-quadrant film, it's going to be okay. It's fine. It's fine. Nobody's going bankrupt over this.
So after 1985, 86 or whatnot, you went on to directing a film called Audience. How was that for you?
Audience was, we were going out to a screening of Schusterman Levine, A Boxing Fable in Las Vegas. The guy in Schusterman Levine, Jeff Banks, who plays Guillermo Mivarez. He's a lawyer in Vegas. He's a defense attorney.
Okay.
He he's also a big boxing fan too. He told all of his friends about the film, and so all these guys liked the film. Their one friend Curtis has in his home, they have like they have a screening room, and Curtis really wanted to have a screening of Schusterman Levine. And so we went out there, me and Chris, who had played Susan King. Before we went out there, I said, okay, well, we're driving out to Las Vegas. I have Chris for however many hours. We're making a movie on the way out there. So I just said, okay, I wrote up an outline. Initially, I was going to try to do something more involved, more like Supernatural, where he'd be driving, someone would be attacking him, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm like, we have to get out there. There's talk that it might rain on the way out there. He doesn't like driving in the rain anyway. He's the one driving. So I said, okay, this is what it's going to be about. You get broken up with your girlfriend and you just bail to Las Vegas. So that's how that movie came about. It was literally just him, hey, we're going to be driving out there anyway. We may as well make a movie on the way out there.
Wow, that you don't know how many holes that fills in for me when I was trying to think about that film, because there was something that bothered me about it, and I was like, now I know what it is.
Hold on. Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Could you say that one more time?
Hello?
I'm
sorry.
not hearing.
I was saying, I don't know. You don't know how many holes that fills in for me when I was watching that film.
What happened to our audio?
Oh, is the audio?
I don't think it's you. I think it might be me. What can I do to get you? What can I do to get us together?
Let's see.
Hey, David?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can hear David. I can't hear my man, Brand.
That's strange.
Here, sign out and sign back in then, Brandon.
All right, be real quick.
Okay.
So, after.
Hey, by the way, thank you guys for doing this. Thank you. I appreciate everything you guys are doing with the reviews anyway, but thank you for doing, it's just nice to talk to you guys.
We're both fans of the independent film genre, and I think I would have to say I love to give an audience to independent filmmakers so that they can talk about their film adventures and the things that they've done in film that they can't to like other magazine people. And to be honest, I know that you've had your fair share of rough adventures of your own, and to me, you get it. The fact that you can make something out of nothing.
Well, you both get that. That's what I appreciate about your guys' reviews. And what I like is that you guys are honest, and you guys get where my shortcomings are, but you guys also get like, you know what? I like that he was really he really let his reach exceed his grasp on this one. Like, you guys both get that, and I appreciate that.
Can you hear me now? Am I coming through?
Are you able to hear Brandon?
I'm able to hear him. I'm able to hear him. Are you able to hear him?
I am not, for some unknown reason.
That is strange.
Should I sign out and sign back in?
Sure. Why don't you try that? Sometimes.
That's weird. I mean, you can hear me fine, right?
That's okay, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes there are some audio discrepancies,
technical difficulties,
and you just have to go with the flow. In any case, say hi to Mr.
That's Fu. He's kept asking me for attention during this particular broadcast. Yes, you have.
Aww.
So you heard my question, right?
I heard your question. I just wasn't sure if he did. So, but once he gets back on here, then I'll let you go and ask him about the next, shall I say, 4 or 5. Even though Dev 4 is kind of somewhat in the future.
That's like way out, but yeah, it's in that lineup. I did all 4 of them as a one review just because they were together. I think he's having trouble with the connection, internet wise.
He might be, but that's okay. Okay, once he signs back in, he'll be able to. I'm going to send him another invite just in case.
Yeah, I do know that this works the best with Chrome for some reason. Whenever it's not.
Well, he's on a phone conversation. So,
are you guys, Brandon?
Yeah. Hey.
I got you. Hey, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Septum Sin. What is that?
That's back to when I was playing D&D with friends after school, and that was a character name, and that just stuck for years.
Good for you. Good. No, I love it. I love that. At first, I thought it had something to do with like your nose and the deviated septum, and then I'm like,
And so, and I don't know if you've noticed, I have a nickname on my Facebook called Wolfman. That kind of goes back to high school. Evidently, I'm quite furry on my back end, so.
I'm with you. It's why you don't see too many shots of me with my shirt off in the movies. So I'm with you.
So what I was saying about the audience is that I thought that that what you had said had filled in a lot of holes for me, because I was trying to think about things, but seeing how it was shot, that just answered a lot of questions for me when I was looking at it. And
by the way, I want to give you credit, Brandon. Like I have friends of 40-something years. I got my brother. There's no one that I know in my life that has seen as many of my films as you have. And I give you. Thank you.
I watched them all within the span of 3 weeks.
And I'm working my way through them.
David, God bless you. God bless. Hey, you hooked this whole thing up. I would not know Brandon if it wasn't for you, my friend.
I got to know Brandon because I used to write under a blog called Movies Galore Milwaukee, and we used to share to the same groups. And suddenly, I wanted to talk more about films, and I had him more on my podcast, and now he kind of somewhat runs it with me. So
that's awesome. Partners. That is awesome.
Now you had a number of them, and again, I do apologize for some of my brutal honesty when I sometimes go into reviews. I always feel like
I love it. It's awesome.
But I always tell people that also means the ones that I say I love, that means legit that I love them a lot. Right. And when we get into a lot of these, that actually addresses that, because of course, the Orange County Hardcore Scenester, when I was watching that, I looked at that, and like I said, it was a different era that I was involved. But I remember in the late 90s, traveling with a group that was trying to get up there. They didn't even have enough money to afford a real set of drums. They were just using pots and pans and stuff. And I loved hearing a lot of that stuff, because I would hear that from them when they were at shows. I even sent a copy to a friend of mine who is the lead singer of River City Rebels, because I said he needs to hear this too, because I'm sure he would like that. And it's just it was a lot of realness there, and a lot of cool stuff and insight. And you were there for all of that. So were you like taking a film as you went, or were you just like putting it all together? How'd that come to be?
I was in a band called Ice. I was the singer, and one thing I realized early on, because I always had a video camera, is I was like, wait, that's a good way to get in with bands, because if you shoot their band, hey guys, I shot your band, can I have your phone number and I'll get you the tape or whatever. And then, when you start doing a band, suddenly those phone numbers become contacts, and you give them the tape and say, hey, I'd love to, I'm in a band too, I'd love to play with you guys. Well, it's punk and hardcore. Generally, people want to hook each other up. So And another thing about my band was, which I was unapologetic about this, we'll open. I don't care. We'll open anything because nobody wants to open a show. So we will open the show. And you know, it got us. Hey, it got us on. Yeah, we played with Korn, we played with Sublime, we played with Rage Against the Machine. I'm just saying, like it worked. So but when I was going and when I was actually in that scene, like I'm still involved in it. I still go to shows. All my friends are pretty much from that scene. But as far as like being up on it and whatnot, like I've become more up on it because of the website Hate56, because of everything that guy's doing over there, because he just shoots shows constantly, or at least he did until this whole thing started. But where I'm going with that is, when I was super duper into it, that's when I got really into writing, which led to filmmaking. But I, believe it or not, wasn't shooting bands as much. Like it just wasn't as important. It just wasn't that big of a deal to me. And then it wasn't until actually years later, when I was in a failing, miserable relationship with a woman, and our last date was the film The Kid Stays in the Picture, the Robert Evans documentary that my friend Dan, who sang for the band No for an Answer, 411, he now sings in a band called Shiners Club. Dan saw that movie and then said, "Evan, is it just me, or is that movie just narration and pictures?" And you got to realize this is way before documentaries became what they are now. Like up until that point, documentaries weren't like aside from Errol Morris and The Thin Blue Line and his way of making movies, documentaries were pretty much the fact-based, and they weren't entertainment in the way that they are now. So that got me thinking about doing Orange County Hardcore Scenester, only because I had a direct through line and way that I wanted to tell that story, and it was because of that I started making that film with some other people, and we were doing like interviews and stuff like that. And the interviews were just terrible. Not that the people were terrible, but nobody really remembered anything. And I had a specific way that I remembered this stuff. And I'm like, I want to tell this freaking story. So what I did was I just went back, sat down, and literally vomited 1990 to 1997 out as like a book. And then I sort of trimmed it down. And then I said, okay, this narration is going to be the movie. I did the narration. And then I went and I found the footage and I kind of put everything together. And that was how that movie came out. And learned a lot making that movie. And that's why now on my YouTube page, Anadenia Films with a Z TV, I do this thing called Orange County Hardcore Scenester Aftermath, which is just, and I never want to stop doing it. I want to do it till I die. I want to keep interviewing everybody. My goal with that was all Orange County Hardcore Scenester is me talking. As you guys can see, I can talk. I'm like, I don't want to be in this at all. And so that's why it's just me interviewing people, little interviews here and there. I'm starting to get into deep dives. And ever since this quarantine, which I actually kind of want to talk to you guys about the setup here. I did an interview recently, which Brandon, you came on for a little bit. I saw. I did an interview on Instagram Live, and unfortunately, I had to be in it to do the interview. But yeah, that's that movie.
Well, I really enjoyed the fast pacing that it went for. It didn't feel like it took actually, it felt like it was over before it began. It was very quick. And
which is kind of funny because that's kind of how that scene kind of felt like. Like it seemed like everything got really, really big, and then it just was over. So that's good. That's good that you saw that.
Oh, so that's good though. That makes the film. To me, it just makes it pop. But that seems to be how those types of scenes are. They blip up and they shine really brightly, and then it's back down for a while until the next rise comes.
Right.
Um, but then you went and you actually did go into horror after that point with the DV films, at least the first three that came out kind of one after the other. I did all four of them as a review for the Anhedenia project that I did.
Oh, we got five. We got five needs to be edited, and six has already started.
And I really
want Riding the Rail. Riding the Rail, you both do. It just came to Anhedenia Films Unlimited on Friday.
I noticed that I was looking at the IMDb. I said, well, I have to watch that and add that to my feature list there. But the DV films were an interesting bag for me. And I had said this in the review that, I was looking at one and I'd had like opinions I was forming as I was going, like consistency. And then it was one of the few things, that one and the Angela's Home movie, because I watched them out of order, I'll admit. I just said, this title looks like it might interest me, so I grabbed that one and I went there.
Okay, I'm kind of going backwards as I go too, so it doesn't matter.
Good. However you come to it.
But I had thought to myself, like, there were a couple of things like, well, these movies are not going to be as good as the others because they're of this. But then when I saw DV2, DV1, I felt a little bit confused by, but I really want to watch it again now that I got the DVD copy, which is an awesome thing to have all three of them on one set. But when I saw the second one, by the
way, praise to Greg Hatanaka, Cinema Epoch, Pathfinder Pictures. He makes and deals with a lot of bigger films than mine, but he loves, for whatever reason, loves my movies, has been very good to me. So thank you for saying that. And I just wanted to plug him. Greg he's the best.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful looking set, and I really liked it. It's like I said, I was blown away by the second one, just how creepy and horrifying it was in moments.
That is Isaac. Isaac is, like, people ask me like what is probably the best live action movie that I have made. And of those three, if I could pick three films I think are the best live action, I think is DV2, I think is The Forming, and I think is The Park. And I think, honestly, it's Isaac. Like, Isaac is, Isaac and I have a real life relationship where I get on his nerves a lot. And but it's kind of funny to the both of us. So I put that in The Park. Like, if you really want to see what our relationship is like, you should watch The Park, which I know that you have. I saw your review. But, like, you saying that about DV2, about it being creepy, Isaac brought creepy, like that movie. He really is freaking creepy in that movie.
I mean, there was a part in there where he just, I don't know what it was. He just grabs the camera and just goes really up close, and it's very hard to shake me when it comes to. I watch a lot of horror, so it's really hard to shake me when it comes to it. But that actually took me back for one moment. How did you get the idea to do the DV films?
VHS had come out, and I go, I'm gonna make DV. I gotta make DV. And then I go, and then the next movie is gonna be SD card. Like, I literally was going to go that route. I saw that VHS was coming out, and I was like, that's a beautiful, brilliant idea.
And to be honest,
I gotta make DV.
Too. That particular anthology started a lot of people thinking too.
Yeah, oh, totally. and so then I did that DV, and I shot that in like a few days. Like, it was. I remember this because it was right after my father died. And there's a scene in the movie where I go to the cemetery, and literally I'd been to the cemetery like a month before for when my father had passed away. And so everything was just sort of like kind of coalesced together. That, like, for instance, that bed that is in the end of the movie, that had been the bed that my dad had been sort of staying on because he had to sort of stay in that part of the house. And I just wanted to preserve that in a movie. And then like, after I did DV, that just seemed to get received well. Like people kind of had an interest in it. So I said, okay, I need to ramp it up with DV2. But one thing I didn't realize, and I'm going to spoil it for whoever has seen it or hasn't seen it, like when I first made the movie, I didn't realize until the second movie that the camera was going to become the killer. Hence the whole "this camera hates you" thing. And, but what has gone on, and what you got when you interviewed me, and I really super duper appreciate this, is you got how it moved in to sort of, it moved away from a DV camera to then being in the fourth one to being about his tablet. And like number 5 somehow, and I forget even how this happens, but number 5 brings back my character from the first one, and it's all about cord cutting. It's all about like antennas and TVs and so it's but honestly, technology saved, in my opinion, it reinvigorated that series, because the first 3 kind of are like, okay, it's about the camera, but then I was like, wait a minute, if we do it about the tablet, and then from the tablet can possess the TV, it can possess, so yeah.
I thought the fourth film was very imaginative in the way that it handled things, whereas it sort of reminds me of, there's another horror series that reminds me of it. I want to say it's Halloween or something like that, where you have some subsequent plots going on in the background, but like say the first and the third film seems to follow very deeply a connection together. And I'm wondering if the fifth film follows in those lines of those, where the second and fourth kind of went into its own direction.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I think so. And I want to, my dream, although it'd be hard now because Popeye, who was in DV4 Electric Nightmares, Mike, he lives in Pennsylvania now. But when he comes out here, we have kind of a standing thing. He's out here for a week. He stays at his mom's house, and we always shoot a movie. So what I want to do is I want to eventually have a battle royale in one of the DVs where it's me, the killer from DV2, Mike, Popeye, and then Brian, who was in DV3, who was DV3 was interesting, and there's a girl in DV3, so people can and then she's one of the stars. That movie was made. A little piece of trivia: they had literally just had their first child, and suddenly they're making DV3 like the next weekend. So praise to them for doing that, because I would have been like, I'm not doing anything.
All right.
All right. So after the DV trilogy, you went into a film called The Brodown and Water Damage. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those 2 projects?
When my father passed away, unbeknownst to me, until my lawyer, another lawyer friend of mine, read me the trust that had been put together for the house. I was the executor of the trust. I did not know that I was going to be inheriting the house. Not free and clear. I still have a mortgage, but as long as I can pay the mortgage, I get the house. And I grew up in this house, lived in this house my whole life. Never gave a care in the world to anything. Would jump down the stairs. We'd fall into the walls. We would whatever. I didn't care about anything. But then suddenly you own the house. And then you start hearing things. And you start hearing like sounds like. And then you start wondering about water. And then I ended up having water damage. And I started to be a freak about water. Like I have a neighbor. He's outside this window. He's not outside right now, but he lives across the street. He's at a point where he won't talk to me about water damage because he's like, Evan, you have a good life. Stop trying to figure out things to worry about. So I wanted to explore the fear that I had of water damage, like the fear that like I would have of like because it really, and I'm not kidding when I say this, it could be crippling, and it's sort of. Well, and it made me,
which I almost wonder if that carried into your Death Toilet series, just a little bit.
Well, there's a reason why we have not shot Death Toilet in my house and my friend's house. But as of Death Toilet 3, that toilet, not to give anything away, has been moved in the movie to a church. So We won't be shooting in the original Brett Baxter house, hotel, whatever it doubled for. So water damage was really just, I wanted to confront that fear. The bro down was Isaac. I like watched that movie. In a lot of that movie, there's a scene at the end of that movie where I say something to the effect, it's actually the trailer, where I say, hey, if something happens, blah, blah, blah. And he starts yelling at me going, what do you mean if something happens? Something's definitely going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, starts making fun of me, telling me how stupid I am. That is our relationship. And like, I often joke with him that I make movies about him just so I can do that and laugh at our friendship and see him get mad. And that was really how that movie came about. I just wanted to make another buddy comedy with him, and he makes me laugh. I don't know if he makes anyone else laugh the way that he makes me laugh, but he makes me laugh. And I'm like, I'm going to make this movie. I came up with the idea, and there it is.
Okay.
I thought it was hilarious. The bro down. I was the dialogue between the two of you that flowed very naturally, but that ending where he comes back and well, I'm not going to blow it, but yeah, that ending was just it actually had me laughing for a few minutes there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So next, after water damage, you did Tim Cohen's Amazing Adventures in Cardboard Box Time Travel.
Yes. I went with a really small title.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the project?
I love time travel. I love time travel movies. I love Back to the Future. And I was like, I want to make something that is kind of weird, but yet yet accessible. And I've seen some of the reviews on Amazon. Some people love it, and some people hate it. But I really wanted to. I love time travel, and just the idea, especially about the whole JFK thing. Just because, like, when I think about this country, and I mean, they talk about it in the movie JFK, but when I think about this country, we seemed, and I know that it wasn't this way, but it just seemed like there was a general belief in something. And then it seemed like after that assassination, it was like, holy shit. Like, wow. Like this thing that we've always believed in isn't really that. And so in my mind, it's always been like, well, how would things have been different if that wouldn't have happened? But honestly, you study history and I'm not as well versed in history as I probably should be. You do kind of come to realize that things weren't that way. It's made to seem that way. And if you're someone like me that grew up watching movies, especially TV shows like Leave It to Beaver, Perry Mason, what I'm seeing is a televised, glossy version of how things were. And I just felt that Tim Cohen, I wanted to explore just this guy that was really, really obsessed with something. There's a line in the movie Heat where Al Pacino, things are ending with this woman that really loves him and he loves her. And she says to him, like, do you think it'll ever work out for us? And he says, probably not. And she says, why not? And he says, because all I am is what I'm going after. And that's Tim Cohen. Like, Tim is, and that's me in a lot of ways too, if you want to know the truth. Like, I am, I mean, look at me as we were doing this interview. I'm doing the interview. I was driving. I'm lugging things in from the car. Like I honestly should have just been sitting here the whole time, but it's just, I'm like, I got to do this little thing. I got to get this stuff done. And so, yeah.
I think that with the Tim Cohen movies, especially the first one had a very good angle. And I would encourage anybody watching this, if I was to watch any of the films, that is one of the ones I would go for, especially when it comes to yourself when you're acting in front of the camera. It uses a lot of that almost manic energy to to your advantage, because there is that question. I mean, there's another film that it reminded me of was K-Pax, which now I think of a little bit differently because of Kevin Spacey. But at least acting-wise, it did have that same constant thought process of, is this real? Or is this all in your head? And that was... was that what you were going for? Was to keep people guessing when they were going?
Yeah. I mean, my whole thing with that movie is it's absurd. He's going to travel back in time in a cardboard box. But what was interesting about making that movie is a Doritos commercial came out around that time. And by the way, sorry, I'm plugging in. There was that was about a guy who travels back in time in a cardboard box. And so everyone, when I was telling them that I was making this movie, they were like, wait, you're doing the Doritos commercial. And I hadn't even seen the freaking Doritos commercial. Yeah, I wanted to do like that manic energy, similar to what you see in the movie Boxing Time too.
Mm-hmm.
I just like, there's something about that. There's something about that works for me. And it's probably because I'm pretty manic in how I talk, and I like seeing movies with like those kind of characters. Like there was that recent Adam Sandler movie, Uncut Gems. I knew from the trailer I was going to love that movie. And I knew it because look at him in the movie. He's bullshitting the entire trailer. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good movie. And I loved it.
But I still need to see that myself. I think
you'll like it. I'd like to know what you think of it.
Let's see. The forming would be the next up.
The forming.
I don't know why I keep drawing parallels between that and water damage. Water damage almost feels like a psychological horror, whereas the forming feels like a traditional horror.
Well, one thing that you brought up that I didn't actually really realize, but like that was a haunted house movie, and I didn't think about that as I was making it. I thought about it a little when I was editing it, and the movie changed a bunch in editing, but I can see where you would think the whole psychological thing of water damage. There's a lot of that in the forming, just in terms of that guy and that character, and I mean, I tried to tie it together when I did The Reckoning, but The Reckoning more was, I'm going to be at the Forum. I was there working with the boxing promoter. I was like helping do the stuff for the fights. And when I'm at the Forum, or when we were at the Forum, setting up fighters, dressing rooms, walking out fighters. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I need to take advantage of this set, like how I did with the movie Boxing Time. So I just shot a movie and then tried to figure out later, how can I tie this into the forming? Hence you get The Reckoning. But The Becoming, which is going to be the third one, I have what I think is a creepy idea that goes back to the whole haunted house thing. So we'll see if I can pull it off.
I think it worked well in the forming. Speaking of Boxing Time.
Oh, how did that happen? How did that come out?
I was just thinking because it came directly after that film was release time.
Yeah, Boxing Time was one of those movies that, and that's available to watch on obviously Anadini Films Unlimited, but it's also on Tubi TV. Once again, Greg Hatanaka, Cinema Epoch, Pathfinder Pictures. Got to give him a lot of credit. Boxing Time was, once again, I'm going to be at the Forum, but then I work all their other fights that they have me do in Orange County at the Gardens Casino. So I have these locations. So I literally, for Boxing Time, there's a scene in the opening of the movie. You'll hear me and you'll hear like a forklift. And then you hear me talking to the people. Yeah. Move that over there. Yeah. Good. Those people had no idea what in the hell I was doing. I literally just set up my camera and I'm doing it. And so that was more like, hey, let's take advantage of this. But also that whole boxing promoter, that whole guy having his back against the wall, trying to do all these things, trying to like have a life and have his dream of putting on all these boxing shows. Once again, to talk about John Cassavetes, like that was very much inspired by Killing of a Chinese Bookie. Like that movie, Who's That Knocking at My Door? Rumblefish. Like there are certain movies by certain directors. Like I literally am just in awe of what the movie's saying. Like it says so much more than just being a movie. And like people look at books, and I love books, and books get so much like, it's literary. So it gets so much more attention and praise and whatnot. But like you get a good movie like Killing of a Chinese Bookie, like Rumblefish, like The Outsiders, which are based on books. I mean, S.E. Hinton, Susan Hinton is like, I'm just in awe of her, R.L. Stein, all of them. So yeah. Anyway, Boxing Time was it was my trying to just tap into that.
Have you ever thought, and just out of curiosity, because my father was a big boxing person, so that was one of our things. And by the way, I'm really sorry to hear about your loss. It's always hard losing a parent.
Here too.
But I was thinking to myself, because that was one of the things that me and my father would bond over when we were able to get together, is doing that. And the whole act of going to a person's house, because the pay-per-view fees were so horrendously expensive that you would all gather around the TV. I always thought that would be interesting. I was like, I didn't know if you ever played with anything like that as a perspective of that kind of community aspect of people getting together for something of that.
Oh, like make a movie about people going to someone's house to watch a pay-per-view, or make a movie about people watching one of my movies, or am I missing it?
Oh, any of the above, really. But I just thought it was like, I don't know why, but I always think about that when I look at the whole boxing thing. We used to, when he was big into Julio Cesar Chavez, back when he was a big thing. Yeah. And we would travel, because sometimes pay-per-view wasn't even available in our area. We were from the mountains, so we would have to travel to the nearest city, to the house of a friend that we knew, we all pitched in money in order to see that match. So I didn't know whether that was something that was a part of the experience that you were familiar with, but
oh yeah, we used to have them. I used to have them at my house, and my friends, individual friends, would get mad at me because I would they would got mad at me because I would invite too many people, and I was to me, I didn't know who the hell was going to show up, so I would just invite a lot of people, and then so everyone showed up. I mean, if it was Tyson fighting, people would show up. Julio Cesar Chavez, it depended. I spent my high school life, Friday and Saturday night was boxing. And so, I mean, I just soaked myself in those things. And that's the thing, is that's why I want to make more boxing movies, write boxing books, like boxing is the one thing that I feel, and film to a degree, but more boxing, I think, that I can talk about with some degree of intelligence. Whereas I just can't say that about too many things.
That'd be an interesting combination. A horror movie about a boxing punk band.
Maybe no, but I actually had an idea for a book that it was about a kid who ends up being trained by a guy, but then comes to find out that his trainer's a ghost. So I was just, but that's like young adult fiction. I don't know if you guys know this. Maybe you do. I write a lot of young adult fiction. So.
Yeah, I'd been reading up, and when I was trying to look you up online, I came across all those books, and I was going to ask about that, and also that you had worked with individuals with special needs, which I can understand. I'm a licensed therapist in the state of Virginia, so I can understand some of those aspects. So it's just I wanted to make sure.
I myself, believe it or not, I have Asperger's syndrome, which is a higher form of autism. So, coming about it from film from that perspective, and
well, that's the thing is it's so funny because like one thing like that people say about people with autism, or you hear about people with autism, Asperger's, they don't feel things the same way. It's not as important, blah blah blah, and based on my experience, and I've been working with people with special needs for 13 years, and honestly, I think that I'm someone that probably has special needs, but I think that when I was in school and at the time, it was just diagnosed as hyperactivity. But I think had I been diagnosed, I'm sure I would have come up somewhere Asperger's, autism on that spectrum. But to like the whole feeling thing. I think that's the reason why, at least with some of the population that I've worked with, that like I get the quote unquote behaviors, and why I get some of the aggression that I get is because these people feel things so strongly that
I almost describe it like vampires, because the modern day vampire, their senses are heightened.
Right. No, exactly.
And if you look at some of the sensibilities that the vampires of nowadays actually feel, to me, that's what kind of feeling you feel when you're going through some of these emotions.
Oh, I can see that. I know there's something like with like the audio where something may be way louder, or just like there was a student that I was working in a room with up until this coronavirus thing. When I would talk, just the sound of his voice, he would go like this, only to me. And the thing is, it didn't bother me. I tried to be like cognizant of, wait a minute, something about me bothers this student. I don't want to set him off. I don't want to get him upset. Even when I would talk lower and I'd whisper, he was still doing it. So I was like, okay, I need to just give him a wide berth. If he needs me, I'm here for him. Otherwise, just going to leave him, and other people can help him.
No, I mean, I just wanted to again mention it because I wanted to thank you for what you do on it. It takes a lot of different training and empathy to work with certain segments of the population, and that is a great thing.
Well,
because
thank you. It's my honor. Like honestly, so much of my creativity, so much of what I do is because I'm in this field and I get to work with these people that like honestly, like before, when I had jobs before this, my whole thing was, I want to make it big and I want to leave this job and I just want to go and I want to write all day and be creative. And then once I started doing this, it wasn't until my second year, I was working with these two students on different days. And I remember thinking, like, I don't care if I make it. I don't care if I sell a script. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'll write my stuff. I'll make my movies. I really like doing this. Like, I was like, okay, I'm good. And that's when things started to happen. So ever since then, I've just been like, as long as I bring like a feeling of, I want to make these people as successful as possible. I want to keep trying things. As long as I feel that way, I want to stay in this business. Just because I'm sure that both of you know this. I'm sure that I'm like you as a therapist, you having been in school with people. I don't know, David, if you had anyone that was like helping you in school, or if you were in any classes where there were people that like aides or whatnot that could like help you with your schoolwork or whatever. But you can tell when you're dealing with people who are just there, clocking in, getting a paycheck. This is not a field that you should be in if you start feeling that way. Like, it's time to do something else.
So after we let's see, you talked about the forming. Boxing Time was a film that you had done in 2016. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that project?
That was just basically having, I think we talked about that. Because it was like Killing of a Chinese Bookie.
Yeah.
Okay.
And whatchamacallit. It was like, that was the big inspiration, but then also and that movie, once again, I'll just plug it again, available on Tubi TV if anybody wants to see it, or watch it on Entertainment Films Unlimited. It's up to you.
Okay.
But yeah, that movie was, it was basically, once again, I'm at the forum. I have this thing. I have the run of the innards of the forum. Nobody knows what I'm doing. I have a press credential. No one's going to stop me. I'm making a movie. So, yeah.
How many films did that happen in? I'm just curious. How many? I mean, I swear I've seen it at least twice before.
Oh, what? That like, I just like the location and...
Yeah, that location. Or similar location to it.
Oh, well, it was in Boxing Time and The Reckoning.
Okay. Moving on to a film that I think this was the first time that I had actually seen anything of yours, which is where I picked your film up, called Fleas, from Sub Rosa Cinema. And
Ron Bonk, I love him.
Ultimately, how did you get involved with Fleas? And Fleas is in the similar category as your Don't Get Out film, somewhat.
And Water Damage. I mean, also same actor, same kind of. I just with Fleas, I had a cat named Garfield, and Garfield at one point got fleas. And once again, as a young kid, I wouldn't have cared about this, but being older, I just found myself stressing about it in a way where you're an adult and you have a full-time job and you have responsibilities and you have a mortgage and now you have a cat with fleas. And I was like, so then I had to like deal with that. And then, so then it just got me thinking about like, okay, what's a really gross film I can make? And so Popeye's mom has this really, or she sold it recently. She had this really nice house with this downstairs room that nobody was ever in. So I said, okay, we're going to put you there. And it's going to be about a guy. He's trying to work, but he has a benefactor. And it basically was sort of the allegory in just a weird way of like a guy that's just trying to be an artist, but he has all these things that are pulling at him. He has a wife and kids. He has a benefactor. And all he wants to do is just do his research. So for whatever reason, and I can't say off the top of my head, I'm like, it would be freaking absurd, almost like a Buñuel film, almost like if he were to like cut off his leg for some reason in the middle of the movie. So with Popeye's mom's permission and assurances that we would clean up the room, I said, Popeye, let's freaking throw blood all over that bathroom, and you're gonna cut off your leg.
Nice. So after Fleas, you did something called Salvo 1.
Yes. Which I'm actually about to start editing a somewhat of a sequel, but the sequel is going to be more like, oh gosh, what's that Tom Cruise movie where it's like science fiction, keeps kind of coming back again and again and again. The Edge of Tomorrow, I think, or something.
Oh, Yeah.
It's like it was kind of like his comeback movie. Like after everything that had happened, he did it, and then everyone loved him again. It's directed by Doug Liman.
Trying to think. Trying to remember.
Yeah, tomorrow. Salvo 1 was I was working. I was supporting a student doing science camp at my job, and they sent me away. And I imagined I was going to be in a room with a bunch of other adults having to share facilities, and I really wasn't looking forward to it. So I get there, and I'm given a key, and I'm told, this is your cabin over there. And I'm like, holy crap. I have my own cabin for 5 days in the mountains. So I came in that first night, got everything organized, and I just wrote out an outline in like 15 minutes. And I said, I'm making this movie. And I shot it over 2 nights. And Sean, my godson, whose house I was just at, whose computer I just got, who were making the movie about his senior year. When I posted that movie, he made a video about it, about how bad it was, and about why I should be in trouble for posting such a boring movie on YouTube. So, yeah, Salvo 1, honestly, I tried to just take the whole end of the world idea. But then when I knew that I was going to science camp again with another student, I sat down and I wrote up an outline. I was asked to go last minute, but I wrote up an outline the weekend before about a guy, and it has a whole science fiction kind of robot thing and really nice visuals because there was a lot of snow. So I'm going to start editing this thing. I'm editing Cool Summer right now, and then I start Tokyo Night Slap, but the next iPad movie that I start editing is going to be Sector 15, which is a somewhat of a sequel to Salvo 1.
Okay.
I am curious now how it will hold up. This might be a better time frame to watch that movie than it was when I originally watched it. And I need to check it out again because maybe my opinion of it will change now that we're all kind of in isolation.
Now that we're all in a position where we're not supposed to leave our house and we have to kind of like look inward, and yeah, good point. I hope
so. Moving on to evidently you did another Tim Cohen project, sequel to your amazing ventures in cardboard box time travel.
Tim Cohen Squared. Yes, it's Tim Cohen 2. I call it Tim Cohen Squared. Basically, just continuing, because the whole thing about the first Tim Cohen is nobody believes him, but he actually does it. So then he's like, okay, he gets back there. And then how does he try to stop JFK? And then I had to have Chris with me, because it has to be kind of a buddy comedy aspect to it. And then I shot, although I don't think that I really pulled it off. I tried to make it look like the grassy knoll, but I shot in Orange, California. They shot that thing you do over there. There's a place called Old Town Orange, and it's perfect for that old look. And it has a circle much like the grassy knoll. So just keeping that story going. The third one, which I hope to make this year, maybe even shoot this summer, is going to be kind of more like an Easy Rider kind of thing, because they're still in the 60s. And Chris recently got a motorcycle. So I figured we could get a lot of cool shots on the motorcycle, have kind of some production values. See, I'm laughing as I say this, because I know that Brandon, as he watches my movies, as you, David, probably watch the movies, you guys probably think in your head, he's just doing this because he got this thing and he wants to use it in the movie. And that's 100% true.
Well, sometimes it's the best inspiration. I know we talked about Woody Allen at the beginning. One thing that I remember, and I can't remember what I read, either was a book or a memoir, where he had said that he would constantly get ideas and he would just write them down on pieces of paper and then just throw them into a box or something. I can't remember so much. then he had just so many of them, so he just take out a different one. I was like, I think I'll do this one this time. And maybe that's that. You get inspired, you just jump on it.
Well, that's the thing. And like I do that as well. Like I have like a list of ideas that's on my computer that I'm constantly adding to, or like I'll write up like outlines and I'll put them in like just I'm constantly, and that's the thing is it is all like I have a motto and I truly believe this, and like I just saw this looking at the time on the thing about we're at like 95 minutes, guys. We made a movie today. That's like pretty like to me that's cool but
you're more than
I was just gonna say I have a thing. Oh wait, David, what were you gonna say? I didn't want to cut you
I
off.
was gonna say you're more than welcome to use this as an extra in one of your films somewhere or whatnot.
Actually, now you're giving me an idea. Okay, I actually have an idea. But one of the things that I live by, and I often tell people this, and it took me a while to realize this, because remember when I told you about Schusterman Levine, how like, I spent all that money and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
No creativity is ever wasted, because so for instance, Brandon just said this about Salvo 1. How will Salvo 1 hold up now that we're all in quarantine? When I made that movie, I had no idea that we were ever going to be in a quarantine. But I'm just saying, like, it exists. Like, I've had things that I've written that it's like I'll be working with a producer and they'll be like, I don't like that idea. What else do you have? Well, I have this. Like, if you're creating stuff, if you're making stuff, like that's what I like about you guys. You guys are always putting up your videos. Always. Like I'm always seeing new videos, new things. That's content. That has value. That exists. Like it's and that's the thing. There is you don't know it, but one of those interviews, all of those interviews, some of those interviews could someday be used or needed for something, for either your own project, someone else's project. No creativity is ever wasted. And like, I'm just saying, had I been real, my friend Darren Jones calls it being precious. Had I been really precious about all of my work, and had I stayed going down that Woody Allen, sort of way that I was going, or at one point I went through a whole Stanley Kubrick phase, which I will admit I was insufferable, and you would not have wanted to have been around me. Had I remained that way, we would not be talking right now. Like you guys would not. You just wouldn't have. So I'm just saying, going back to that thought, I truly believe that no creativity is ever wasted.
You had mentioned The Reckoning earlier when we were talking about Boxing Time, using some of the same stuff, but kind of moving into a haunting perspective. And actually, that's one of the few films that my wife actually got to watch part of. Which,
cool.
She got to watch part of that one, and I'm wanting to say, it's sad I can't remember what the other one is. I've been trying to get her to watch the DV films, but
good. Well, let me tell you this. I mean, this is I'm saying this in a tongue-in-cheek way. If you ever want to get divorced, show her the Death Toilet movies. I think that will be. I think if you ever want to have a fight, show her the Death Toilet movies.
I unfortunately showed my fiance the Death Toilet one, and she didn't like it, but she's got her own preferences or whatnot. I always tell her to give everything a one time, and obviously
you're saying to me that your fiance, when she saw Brett Baxter get emasculated in the opening portion of the movie, she goes, "This is the best thing I've ever seen."
I was saying to her that's probably the best thing I've ever seen, but but she was bored through some of it, so I apologize for saying that.
I love it. No, it's great. But I often say this. and you guys know.
Honestly, half the time, some of the films that I end up viewing, I end up subjecting her to some of the movies that I end up watching anyway. So it's like, okay, honey, you got to deal with me for tonight. At least watch this with me, and then I'll get a review out on it or something like that. And she's like, do I really have to?
Well, here's the thing. Tell her this. Tell her this. Ending the Films Unlimited is a buffet. There's going to be some stuff she loves. There's going to be some stuff she doesn't like. She doesn't have to eat everything. She can sample. And maybe she'll like some of the earlier films that were more traditional narrative. But hey, thank you for doing that. And I actually have a film I need to ask you guys about, but I'll wait till the end of the interview.
Okay. Moving on to let's see, Brandon. Why don't you ask him about the park and Insect?
Okay, yeah, I know you said a little bit about the park, especially with that kind of back and forth that you and your co-star had with it, and that was that particular film had an interesting effect on me because I was really getting into it, and then the end kind of changed my thoughts on it. But were you like going for that ending in particular when you did it? Because that was probably the first time I saw. Well, I mean, there was some in Salvo 1 and a couple of bits here, but the first time I've really seen any of that kind of computer animation stuff that you threw in was in the park. How did that come to you?
To me, the park is Clerks meets Jurassic Park. Like, I think that's a good way to put it. These two idiots out, they're bumbling around, and they're making a movie, and then all of a sudden, the movie becomes this science fiction thing where there's dinosaurs walking around, and then like I just, once again, it just seemed like fun, like let's make this fun movie. And Isaac and I used to do a thing. We don't do it anymore just because we make so many movies now that I'd rather not trade on my friendship with him in this way. But his birthday gift to me was he'd star in one of my movies on my birthday. So we shot the park on my birthday, and it was just it was an attempt to just make like a slapstick fun movie that starts off as one thing, because I love when movies do this, and then it became something else, just something else completely different than what it had originally started in. And that's the park.
Did you embed that thing in the wall, or was it already there when you got? I think it was like a little camera, or was it a data stick or something in the wall? I know some people will do that, and it's.
No, we put that up. Didn't I put it up? I think I put it up with like masking tape or something. that little tiny camera, and then the thing is, in that movie, the guy at the end of the movie that goes, "Very good." That's Roy. Roy is the boxing promoter. And basically, Roy will just be in a movie. I'll give him he doesn't ask many questions. I'll just say, look, I need you doing this, this, and this. And Roy does it. And then we move on. So, yeah, we slap that thing on there. If it's what I think you're talking about, that little camera, yeah, we just put on there with masking tape. How that idea actually came about was when Isaac and I were shooting DV2, there was that creepy house that actually got demolished. It was near a building called the X-Bond building. And he and I kept seeing it. We would just talk about it. And I always wondered about it. And I kept wondering, like, what if someone from the X-Bond building, or what if there's a camera up at the X-Bond building that's shooting us doing this? And they're wondering what we're doing. And that's what led to the idea for the park.
And then, of course, you went back to animation again. And I've said this to you before in the past because I love your animated movies, the ones that were there. And looking at it on the surface, I didn't think I was going to. But then when I got into
Cool Summer, you're going to love Cool Summer.
Because both 85 and the Insect, I'm going to guess that those came from real experiences. Well, maybe not the insect itself, obviously, unless there's something there. But,
Insect, in my opinion, if you want to see like if you want to see the best film that I've ever made, that would be Insect. Just because I think it tells a story that is accessible and that you can follow, but there's also like a bigger theme at work. Insect was completed, at least the animation, shortly after my father passed away, and like he and I had just become so close. And then one thing about him passing away, my mom passing away, like 5 to 7 years before that, in the movie Phantasm, there's that scene or that line in the movie in the very beginning where the older brother Jody is talking about how he's going to have to leave his little brother, and he says something to the effect of, "Wow, you know, he's a tough kid. I'm really gonna miss him." And the thing about Insect was, I wanted to look at loss, and I wanted to look at like what if you were so afraid of things happening and so afraid of like both your parents are dead and you and your brother are going to go move in with your aunt and uncle, but you think that your brother may be leaving you eventually. Just that fear. How might that manifest itself? Hence the Insect in the house. And it also enabled me to make a creature feature, to make a haunted house movie. And it's one of those things I'm actually starting in a very cursory way to outline a sequel to Insect that deals with the Mr. Crane character, because the guy who voiced Mr. Crane was my neighbor from down the street who passed away before the movie got finished. So I actually have another neighbor who's older that I want to voice the Mr. Crane character in the sequel. So, but I mean, Insect, and I say this unabashedly, is if Phantasm doesn't exist, if Don Coscarelli's Phantasm doesn't exist, Insect doesn't exist either.
Yeah, I always notice the just the personal nature both films seem to have, and to this day, I look forward to the next one, especially if it has even a tenth of the writing of the other two. So,
Cool Summer. Just to talk about that, just very briefly, is very much inspired mid '80s. Are you guys familiar, or I'm sure you guys have heard of the serial killer Richard Ramirez?
Yeah. The Hillside Strangler?
Yeah, like kind of all around that time.
Yep.
Loosely inspired by, because I read a book on him when I was researching a script that I wrote called How I Lost My Mind and Killed Someone.
Well, and if I remember correctly, they just touched on him in American Horror Story.
Did they?
Yeah, in the slasher season that they just recently after Apocalypse.
Set in the 80s.
Yeah, the one about the 80s.
Is that on Netflix yet?
I think it might be.
I
need to check it out
because I really wanted to see that. Yeah, I mean, it's just loosely based on that, but it's yeah. I think that, here's the thing: if you like 85, 86, if you like Insect, you're gonna love Cool Summer. You're gonna love it.
I definitely look forward to.
I need to give a little plug for Sean. It was originally Sean, my godson. He's my guy. He originally, he's turning 19 in June. Originally the movie was called Cruel Summer, based on the Bananarama song. Just like, but then I said that to him, and Sean, when he would say it back to me, kept calling it Cool Summer. He said, "Yeah." So here, because Sean makes music for a lot of my movies, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to write you a song for Cool Summer." And he'll go into GarageBand and just whip up a song. And I use most of his stuff. In fact, in the beginning of riding the rail, especially in the trailer, you can hear his music. But yeah, it originally was Cruel Summer, and him saying that Cool Summer, I said, that's the title.
Nice. Going into how many times can I say I love you? How did you get involved with that project?
I was in a relationship, and I was very bad in the relationship. Not in like a cheating way. I would never do that. That's not me. But I just wasn't good in the relationship and wasn't doing the kind of things. Look, Brandon's married. You have a fiance. You guys know there's things that you need to do when you're in a relationship.
Mhm.
And sometimes and I just I wasn't doing the things that I should have done. And so after kind of a big blowout, I was doing a boxing show at the Coliseum in Los Angeles, and I was like, I'm making a movie. I'm just going to pour out how I'm feeling right now. And there's a lot of real emotion in that movie. I'll be honest, I don't know that that movie is one of my best movies or even that great of a movie at all. But it just, I was feeling a certain way. And I'm like, damn it, I'm putting this somewhere. And it became that movie.
Okay. Moving on to Death Toilet, filmed in 2018. How were you inspired to get into that film?
Mike Hartsfield, who plays Brett Baxter, and Mike made the first 3 movies with me: Toll Collector, Walking Between the Raindrops, and Safety in Numbers. And Mike also runs the punk label New Age Records. And Mike and I kept talking for decades about a movie called Death Toilet. And then I started having this one day, I don't know why it came to me, I imagined a scene opening a movie of a guy sitting there and then a creature eats his balls. And I merged all this together. And Mike and I just said, dude, I'm going to write up an outline. We're going to shoot this in a day. Let's go. And we did it. And it was one of those things where it was so much fun, and so much fun to be working with Mike again.
Mm-hmm.
That it like literally the sky's the limit with that movie. And Mike is up for anything. And the thing about Mike and Isaac, those two guys are more how do I put this? They're willing, like Roger Corman said this about himself. And I feel that I am this way too. In making movies and all this whole stuff, I'm a sprinter. I'm not a long distance runner. I want to get in. I want to make the movie. I want to edit it. I want to get it out. I want to make another. Churn and burn. It's just how I am. Whereas Isaac and Mike, Isaac more than Mike, they are a bit more thoughtful and want to put more into it. And so the really good parts of Death Toilet are them. Me, like, I can take what they've done and I'm able to edit it and I'm able to do that. But like when we're making the movie, I literally just want to go. So, yeah,
I actually
Death Toilet came about.
It reminded me a lot of a film that Dave and I have discussed prior on this channel called House Shark, where the film opens up with somebody on the toilet getting eaten by a shark while they're on the toilet.
I gotta see this movie. I need to see House Shark because I've wanted to see it since I heard about it, and yeah, I need to see that just because it like I've been a fan of SRS. What Ron Bonk's doing. I mean, do you guys realize Ron Bonk was the first guy to have the URL bmovie.com?
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. So anyway, yeah, I need to see House Shark. I need to see it.
I will say that Death Toilet has a special place for me when it comes to the films, just because that's what got me on board the project to cover all of these films in the first place. I'd never seen it, but when Dave brought me those films, I'm a fan.
I ended up being one of the ones to at least get in on the Kickstarter campaign towards his campaign for it, and I ended up having my name like in the special thanks section, not producer wise, but I didn't. I was producing something else at the time, so.
Of what film was that? Of what film was the Kickstarter for?
House Shark.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
He finished up.
interestingly,
He finished up kickstarting it to get the film out there. Probably the end of beginning of January of last year. I ended up getting my name in the end. It's really tiny in the credits, but
yeah, man. No, you're there. You're there,
Yeah.
and you guys support these films. And I mean, it's interesting about Death Toilet. It initially started. I just hit Ron up and said, "Hey, like he distributed some of my movies in like the '90s and the early 2000s, but we hadn't really done anything. And I just kind of got my own way. But then I started noticing that there's this whole, I don't know if it's underground, but there's this whole interest in physical media. But it's got to be certain films. Like dramas, not as much. Genre films, sci-fi, horror. And so I said, I'd never done a horror like live action film real. Well, I guess I had. I'd never done a film like Death Toilet. So I said to Ron, I said, hey, do you want to just do like some copies as like a giveaway? So we did, and there was all this interest. And then I said, hey, should I make up some copies? He said, yeah. And that's what led me to David, which is what led me to Brandon, which is what led to all of us doing all this stuff. So no creativity is ever wasted.
Well, I know we did a giveaway, but do you get any revenue from the sales of the?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
When he sells them, yeah.
I know some directors who have not gotten revenue from Ron, who have had some problems. So
I gotta be honest. In all my dealings with Ron, he has been 5-star. Like I exclusively do my DVDs with him. I mean, don't get me wrong. If somebody else were to come along and they're like, "Hey, we want to do this and this," but like Ron is so good, I'm cool with him. And what I like is it's very he's very smart, and we start with a giveaway, and then based on the interest off the giveaway, then we decide how many DVDs he's going to order. Like he's been doing this forever. He's a really sharp guy.
Well, I know one of my goals is to eventually, once I have gotten money again, to start collecting more of your films on physical. I've gotten the majority, but I still have some to go. I always make sure to get the favorites first. Like I tracked down that library copy of Schusterman that was that had left.
And I would suggest do what you have been doing, which is revamping your films with like newer posters, and then do them like you have been. Because believe it or not, when you update your posters and things like that nature. I mean, David Sterling just did it with his Empire of the Apes series, and it is phenomenal how many films he was able to sell under a new poster, under a new cover. So
well, that's my feeling is like right now I'm going through like some of the older titles, but like even like some of the newer titles, the titles that, as we said, kind of warrant a DVD release that are more genre-y. And then what I'm going to do is do those and then probably go back and maybe revamp and whatnot. But with like Schusterman Levine, there's a documentary that I want to include on there just because I think well, first of all, the movie's only 50 minutes long or something, but with this documentary, you're looking at like 90 minutes. And there's a lot in that documentary that I just think people would find interesting. Just because, and I'm sure you guys have seen this, like when you make movies and you kind of get around other people making movies, you can find yourself close to a lot of really big things. And it's just crazy. Like just to be that close to things through something that you created. So, yeah. Yeah, David Sterling's somebody else. He is the master at making not only something from nothing, but he's the master at like he's always got something cooking.
Actually,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask a real quick thing about because we were talking about remaking stuff. There was a remake or something of Walking Between Raindrops. Was that an actual remake? Was that a remaster? What is? I've got the copy. I just haven't seen it yet.
Kevin Lindenmuth, who made the Addicted to Murder series, which had been and Kevin, you got to realize, Kevin to me is a legend because Kevin got.
I've had him on the show before.
Oh, he got Addicted to Murder in the Blockbuster by himself. So he shoots a movie for $5,000 and gets it into freaking Blockbuster all by himself. And so ended up selling the shit out of it. I had made Walking Between the Raindrops. I forget how it happened. I got the phone number of a guy who had made a movie called Dead Meat. And that guy was like, well, show your film to Kevin Lindenmuth. So I sent it to Kevin, figuring he's a horror guy. He's going to freaking hate it. He's not going to want to watch it. Kevin loved it. And it's like, this is one of the best independent films I've seen in forever, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, he and I talk. We do a few things. And then I come home one night to a fax. And I mean, this shows you how long ago this was. And he's like, hey, I'm making all these movies. I'm doing all this stuff. But I want to do something for Sundance. I want to remake Walking Between the Raindrops. I want to shoot it with a 3-chip camera. I want to take that footage. I want to blow it up to 16 millimeter. I'll direct. Evan, you write and you star, and we'll get the original cast. So what it is it's basically a 3 to 4 year later version of the original Walking Between the Raindrops in color on film. It was then put on film and then transferred back, and it's different, but very, very similar. Similar camera setup, similar things. It's one of those things that realistically he probably should have gotten I just said maybe like, at least for me, I don't think I should have started it only because hair-wise, I'm just being honest. But when Walking Between the Raindrops, I was 21. I can pass for a college student. At 25, with basically a comb over, it just wasn't. Watch it and tell me. Watch it, and I look forward to your review.
Well, I suppose at least you shaved your head for Schusterman.
No, Schusterman, but Schusterman, it didn't matter. Schusterman, I shaved for Schusterman.
Alrighty. So after Death Toilet, you went into a film called Riverbed, which is not your only film about a cardboard box. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
The Riverbed, it's not what it was, but it is still here. We used to have over by Angel Stadium in Anaheim, just this crazy homeless encampment. And it was the kind of thing, nobody wanted it there, but nobody knew what to do with it. And to me, I just sort of like homelessness, even now, it's sort of like this issue where everyone talks about doing something about it, but nobody's really doing anything about it. Nobody really wants to do anything about it. So I came up with an idea about a filmmaker that goes out and they're going to make a movie about it. And they're really going to show, what the homeless people go through. And they're, and really high-minded. And then while out there doing it, they end up getting cursed and they start turning into a cardboard box. That was another idea that I talked about with Isaac. And Isaac and I were both going to be in the movie. And Isaac laughed so much about the cardboard box idea and about the spitting out the peanuts and spitting out paper clips that I said, okay, we're gonna make this movie. Isaac ended up for a multitude of reasons not being in the movie. But I wanted to make a movie and just kind of that was just sort of saying, and David, you really touched on this in your review, like there's a big high-minded, like we're going to deal with this, but nobody's dealing with it. We're just kicking it down the road. And we're like empty boxes. And so that's why at the end of the movie, the guy becomes a box. Sorry, didn't mean to spoil that for anyone watching.
Yeah, I felt so guilty for kind of laughing at one of those scenes when you were trying to do it, because I felt like I was trying to go for a scare there. And that's like, do I need... So I debated so long about putting my true feelings about the film.
It's absurd, right? I mean,
so...
I'm turning into a box. I'm turning into a box.
Yeah.
Come on.
I will remember you for those lines.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But in any case, Brandon, why don't you...
Wait, by the way, I need to correct something. I think I called Brandon David when I meant to call him Brandon. I'm sorry. I'm aware. I'm aware.
Well, yeah, I did. It was like I say, a lot of the films have like sort of a twofold for me. There are some parts that I am iffy about, but then other parts I think to myself, there's some brilliance there. Like I loved the fact that the guy was just this out of touch individual, and
but
the more
he really had good intentions, but
yeah,
he just was out of touch.
Exactly. And at the end, like I said, the only thing that I was thinking to myself, then I thought at the end, it's like, you know what though, what it actually is a pretty fun film to watch. I really enjoy it. Then we lead into Death Toilet 2, which has a lot of special effects work to it. Because I remember looking at both of those, that one and the one that's the latest that I've seen, which is Don't Get Out. And to me, I was again 2 months. I really love the way that you did the special effects in Death Toilet 2, and I didn't like it in Don't Get Out, but I was amazed at that, just because it almost made me feel like I was having PTSD as I was going through that, all the explosions, everything going. Did you like come across that? Did you like talk to somebody who would experience that sort of thing to put that together?
No, I mean, for Death Toilet, it was more about like, and this was sort of just a happy accident, just like you know, like the Phantasm series started off, guys in a house being chased by the tall man, and then by the fifth movie, they've taken up arms and they're battling and there's big explosions and stuff like that. With Death Toilet, I just wanted to do something bigger and just to kind of show, like, hey guys, just so you know, I'm in on the joke. I realize what this is. I know what this is making, but let's just freaking blow it up and just have fun. And I mean, one of my favorite scenes is the fight scene between Father Dingleberry and Brett Baxter, just because, like, at one point he's shoving toilet paper down his mouth and there's explosions and then he disappears, and so there was no research other than, I mean, my father was in Vietnam and I just wanted to, like, I guess I liked the kitschiness of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so I wanted to put a little bit of that in the movie. But it was more just about, let's have a good time and make this film. Let's supersize it and really, there'll be more explosions. Do everything bigger.
It definitely came across as quite epic, in my opinion, for Death Toilet.
Mike's voice kind of reminds me of a David Cross individual, from Scary Movie 2. So when I hear his voice, I'm thinking, wait a minute, he kind of sounds like David Cross, but he's not,
Right.
And you can tell him that too. But anyways, go ahead, Brandon.
No. I mean, that was all I'd had on Death Toilet. Like I said at the beginning, it brought me in, and I said I have to see this guy's films, because to me, anybody who is willing to make a film called Death Toilet is an awesome individual in my book.
Well, what's funny about it is the movie's gotten some bad reviews, and that's fine. I mean, I've gotten tons of bad reviews. I'm fine with it. I've gotten some good reviews, and there's, but sometimes my only complaint is if the review is like someone, I think they wrote something about it being disgusting or something like that, and I wanted to say, it's freaking called Death Toilet. What do you think you're watching
It's
here?
meant to be
Right.
insulting. It's meant to be unheard of or outlandish or as
movie
gross
called
as you
Death
can
Toilet
imagine.
be kind of gross.
If you
Shouldn't
wanted
be
to go
kinda
down
gross.
that route, but you actually kept it somewhat clean. So
No, well, there's no TNA. There's no TNA. So I have that kind of going for me and not going for me.
but in any case, so after Death Toilet 2, you did Don't Get Out, which kind of goes along the lines, like I said, of fleas in the general population of things. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that project?
That movie, well, first of all, the title was me simply trying to piggyback Jordan Peele's highly successful Get Out. But Popeye Mike was in town, and actually, I haven't really talked a lot about this. I mean, actually, just a little bit. We have since 2017, and I'm going to start editing it shortly. It has more of a documentary feel. We're shooting Walking Between the Raindrops again. Not Walking Between the Raindrops, the movie again. It's a sequel that sort of shows what happened after Stanley left the party in the first movie. So anyway, where I'm going with that is this. Of the many things that we shot when Popeye was out, we shot Don't Get Out. And the thing about Popeye is I write up an outline, and he is very good with just taking it and running with it. I mean, all those guys are, but Popeye especially, just really, really, really good. And Popeye also can play swarmy and just kind of scumbaggy really well. And because in real life, I mean, he really is one of those people that the saying is true. Everybody doesn't like somebody. Nobody doesn't like him. And so that's why when he plays these roles, I think he's really good at them. And so anyway, he's playing. He was able just to riff on that character as a stockbroker, and my feeling was we need to heighten this and just get more and more absurd and silly and that's why, like, at the end, I'm not giving it. I mean, whoever sees this, don't be upset that I'm giving it away. That's why at the end, 2 freaking missiles come into the car and blow up the car. It's just that kind of movie. But the ending was actually meant to be like when that creature comes on and was meant to be. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Treasure of the Four Crowns.
Sounds familiar, but it may have been a movie that I may have seen back in like the early 90s.
It actually may not be Treasure of the Four Crowns. It was one of those movies. It was a 3D movie. No, I think it is Treasure of the Four Crowns. Because I get that in King Solomon's Mines confused. Anyway, there's a scene at the end of Treasure of the Four Crowns because it was like a 3D movie where like this big goopy, and if you look it up, I believe that it was in 3D. This big goopy thing comes out, and then this really fake looking snake comes out and comes towards the screen like that. And I said, we need to end Don't Get Out that way. Just a big ha ha ha. It's all been fun. I hope you enjoyed the movie.
After this film, you went and did Riding the Rail, which apparently you just said went on Friday, correct?
Yeah, it's now available VOD on Anadina Films on demand, and then also on Anadina Films Unlimited, which you can subscribe to for $2 a month, and you can watch all the films as many times as you want. Riding the Rail, it's basically, I don't know if it's an indictment, but it's a look kind of at the healthcare system. And I mean, something that I think we're definitely seeing in this coronavirus thing. If you've got money, you're probably doing okay. And if you don't have money, you're probably in kind of a difficult situation. And Riding the Rail just looks at a guy who lost his mother, and it's just one of those things. He's just not letting it go. And the look of the film actually came about. That's actually an effect. They sell these things called LUTs, which you can like make, and you can like alter images and whatnot with it. They sell for like specific directors. And so they sold one for Quentin Tarantino, and I just real quickly one day just put it on the Sin City one for that movie, just a little piece of footage, and I posted a picture of it, and people seemed to respond to that. And then around that time, I rewatched Joker, and I just realized that with the whiteness of the person's face and the redness of the lips, I kind of look like the Joker. And I said, like, Joker is, one of those guys that was not very happy with the way society had treated him, and certainly not happy with the way the healthcare system had treated him. So anyway, Riding the Rail is kind of a look at that, and just about a guy that it just feels this is something that he needs to do, and there's a doctor that he feels was responsible for killing his mom, and he's going to get revenge. And that's the movie, is him kind of leading up to that, and us kind of getting into that mindset.
Okay. Moving on to, are there any other projects that you would like to tell our audience about that you're working on that you haven't aforementioned?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I talked about Cool Summer, which is going to be the next film to come out. That actually should be out in about 10 days or so. I normally don't have this much time, but I'm doing distance learning with students through the school district that I work for. So I'm just saying, I just have more time to kind of, once I'm done doing that in the day, we're all quarantined, we can't go anywhere. So anyway, there's that. There's another movie coming out called Tokyo Night Slap, which is going to be sort of it's supposedly set in Japan, and it's basically it's basically like The Running Man. It takes place in a bedroom. You guys will see it. And there's Tokyo Night Slap. I mean, there's Sector 15.
Yeah.
One movie that I told you is like the Edge of Tomorrow. That's going to be coming out shortly. I have another movie called Care Killer coming out, which is looks at how like the special needs community looks at the special needs community and the people that take care of them. And it's a horror movie. It's basically about a guy who's nonverbal. He kills his caregiver, and then he goes outside.
Okay.
And what does he do? I mean, but even in saying that, like, yeah, I have about, I think, 16 or 17 movies that I need to edit. So you guys are going to be doing a lot more reviews, whether you like it or not. Because, I got some stuff.
That's okay. Most of the time, we have all the time in the world. So, in any case, I wanted to ask you about the things that you've written. How many books have you written per se? I know that Brandon said that you had actually written some books.
Lots of books.
I've written, I want to say, I do a lot of writing. Okay, I write for myself. So I actually have a series of 12 books. They're going to come out in one book called The Best Days of My Life, which features the characters from 1985, 1986. But like, I put out books myself through an imprint that I named after my mom called Ronnie's Books. But I also write for this company called Saddleback, who are just an amazing educational company. And I've written all in for myself and for them, I think somewhere between 60 and 70 books. Like some are 5,000 words, some are 10,000 words, some are 25,000 words, some are 1,000 words. It just depends. And a lot of it is young adult fiction, which is like stuff that I love, like S.E. Hinton type stuff. If you like R.L. Stine, a new series that I just wrote for them is coming out soon called the Vintage Rose Mysteries. And it's all about these creepy things that people buy or they get from the Vintage Rose, how those things sort of ruin their life and how it all ties back to the Vintage Rose. And yeah, I mean, they've just been a blessing. I owe them a debt of gratitude just because, I mean, to be able to write at all and to be able to make money off it is a gift. To be able to write as much as they afford me the ability to write is just a gift. And I'm just like, I will go to the ends of the earth for them. I've even told them, I said, listen, I can get a huge contract with you know, I could become like a J.K. Rowling. I will never stop writing for them. We will never amend our contract. They will never have to pay me more than they pay. Like it will never be an issue. Saddleback Educational Publishing are just like I owe them. I owe them so much.
Two more questions. One being what out of all of the films that you've made to date is your favorite film that you've made, and then what is your favorite book that you have actually written?
The favorite film, it's a tie. If you don't mind me giving a tie, like the animated films are like Insect, I think is probably just because that really was a case. Like, okay, if we're going animated, it's Insect. Just because that was such a case of just I saw it in my head, I put it down on the page, and then I made it, and it was really my vision held in. If we're gonna go a live action film, I would probably say Death Toilet 2, just because that really cemented it was fun making it. It was fun editing it. But then for my friendship with Mike and Isaac, it really made us realize, guys, we're approaching 50, and if anything, we need to be doing more of this. way more of this than like trying to be like, oh, we're getting older, we need to do this. Like, if anything, we need to double down on being a bunch of idiots. And as far as like books, my favorite book, I love the book that I wrote called Quick Cutter, but that's because Sean, my godson, was like the main character in that. I wrote a book called The Space Between, which is it's a mixed martial arts story, and it's about a guy who is with a girl when they're like in middle school. The girl moves away. They're both really into like wrestling and MMA. The girl moves away and then comes back, and the guy gets really excited because he's a sophomore now, and he's like, okay, we're gonna restart our relationship. And the guy's in MMA and all that macho world of MMA, and the girl comes back, and her name was Danielle, but now Danielle's transitioning to be a guy, and her name is Dan. And Dan is also still in MMA, and the two of them compete against each other in a mixed martial arts tournament. So I just like that I was able to take that idea and to really kind of look at like a lot of like the ways that we look at masculinity and the ways that we look at other people, and just it was nice to be able to achieve that in something that I had written.
Okay. I think we're nearing the end of our time here on the show together, but I would like to ask you, where can we find, well, I know you've mentioned it throughout the show.
Vimeo, go on Vimeo, sign up for Anadina Films Unlimited.
One more
time, $2 a month.
Tell us where we can find many of your works, whether it be film or digital media or written work. Tell us where we can find some of your stuff and how to get in contact with you.
If you want to see all of my films, Anadina Films Unlimited on Vimeo, you just have to go to Vimeo, and or if you just look up Google Anadina Films Unlimited, it'll come up. It's $2 a month, constantly adding stuff to it. There's 30 films in there, and you can watch them as many times as you want, or if you don't want to do that, if you want to pay $2 a month, you can do it. You can rent all them, or if you want to get like DVDs of them or whatnot, you can do that on Amazon. If you want to get my books, Amazon, or you can just go to saddlebackeducationalpublishing.com, and you can also get my books there too. If you want to get the personal books that I've written, you can also get those on Amazon as well.
All righty. Well, I appreciate your time to be able to sit down and talk about your entire filmography here, and as well give us a little bit about your writing career too. So, thank you so much for the ability to do this, and it has been a pleasure to listen to how you went about and seeing what was behind your mind and your mind.
Will you please send me the link for this as soon as you have it, so that I can put it on all my stuff?
Will do. I'll be sticking it in the post that I tagged you in as soon as it shows up, because we did a lot of time here. It'll take a little bit of time for it to show up on YouTube, but eventually it will, and I'll be able to send it to you or vice versa. So, in any case,
cool. Because I just took a screenshot of it, and I'm going to use that to like post and tell people, and I'll just put the URL up. And hey, thank you guys for talking to me. Thank you guys for caring about this stuff. Thank you guys for doing what you do for creating content. And you know what I love is that usually, you do an interview and it's goodbye, but we're going to be seeing you. There's all these movies and all these. We're not done with each other.
No, we're not.
We still have the Vimeo movie that I'm going to do of your guys' reviews that I'm going to put up on Vimeo. Once we get all those, we'll string them together. And so, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On that note, I will say good afternoon, folks, and definitely check this interview out. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much for listening. And let us know down in the comments if you have seen any of Anadina films. So stay tuned for more. I'll be having several more interviews this week. So keep posted during the Easter week. I'll be going back on with Foxtrot Media Film tomorrow night, and I'll be speaking to Clown Motel director Joseph Kelly on Tuesday, slightly before our pre-show. So it's definitely going to be an exciting time. And stay tuned for more exciting stuff down the way. Brandon, why don't you say a little bit about who you are, and we'll wrap this up here.
Well, I'm Septum Sen of Septum Sen versus the World. If you want more information about the Evan Jacobs films, of course, you can check out Dave's channel for his, but also on our channel, we have a weekly show called the Anhedonia Project. And we do this every Thursday, 12:30 p.m. at Eastern Time. It debuts on YouTube. So if you want to see more and more reviews, he's actually talked about a couple of those in our interview, you can hear more in depth at that place.
Alrighty, and my name is David Strege. I run Inside Moves Galore. I'm a founding father for it, but I run it with Brandon here and some of my other fellow film talkers that we have here every Tuesday nights at 9. So, but we also have a pre-show tomorrow dealing with Mega Shark versus the Giant Octopus tomorrow night. So I am kind of slimming it closely to the Giant Octopus discussion by going on with Joseph Kelly. But it's probably going to be worth it. I'm going to be doing it at 4:30, and hopefully it won't collide with the octopus itself. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a blast. And thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Check out some of the reviews that I have out there. I just did a romantic comedy from a guy I met on LinkedIn. It was kind of a blast. It's on Tubi. I believe it was called "What Love Looks Like." So check that review out, and we'll get back to you with some more fun film adventures, which probably might be over on Septum Sin's channel. So stay tuned for that tomorrow night. In any case, thank you for listening. Once again, I'm David Strege, and it has been a pleasure.